Hello, Joe Rogan, 50 Cent, and Diddy are being and have been used remotely in the sources of prosecutors and judges and their family members and other natures of conjunctions to them involved. The networks have the celebrities too, fishing for themselves. I meant to put PAHISHING rather than fishing. I meant because they're using, in other words, they're changing and faking what people say about and say about predicate acts and about the World Trade Center attack. And they have collusion slash S with how the breaching method showed the names of the people, the sciences, and the people attacking them to use differences as and exceptions, sensing for the breaching method anyone adapting properly. You guys have had replaced at your campuses sickly distinctly with James Madison and the plural founders left declassified to be communicated for themselves. For example, why not to entertain? Anyone other than James Madison pretended to have been one of those plural founders. We're not supposed to leave out the plural founders and why and how. They directed us to not entertain any of their names pretended known. See, when that's pretended debatable, that's also sensing for and announcing for the breaching method. But the breaching method had already been demonstrated to everyone since before modern religious messengers were born. But no one is allowed to speak about those demonstrations or they were sensed. James Madison he declassified this for us. He did not, the only founder we know the name of, he did not have free speech while he was a president. He declassified about how the breaching method had roles, collusion slash S only permitted against all native, against all women, against everyone, every difference, against black people's whites of eyes, slavery even only permitted northern colonies, southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. That's not clear, not because people did their books, because the books in presentation slash S of them, it was his collusion slash S with layers of things for a breaching method, from also with them, with their motivations. Right where no one wants collusion slash S, exceptions are made. Right where no one wants, like with black people's whites of eyes, you want collusions with a predicate acts with facts method. Not even a lawyer. A Trantolo and others are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with a number of wire crime acts and methods, collusions, and relative delusions wrought too with Channel 3 News and lawyers who advertise it with them, who have interbranch switching names, forging names, collusions with child abusers, leaders, and kids. The same names are involved with elderly homes. And it's not to just point the guilt out because it's every single person with these industries. You guys were supposed to allow people to what our founders detailed about why the breaching method employed industries. The breaching method employed people's syntax to pretend that their roles with the American Revolution were other than they were, or they would have been sensed. They all had to make up fake reasons at the same time for everyone becoming a country together. They were forced to. That's also why they had to leave slavery north and south, entrenched. That's not debatable. You guys are styles of logic, natures of logic. A breaching method had to show the teachers that they have to keep their roles with it blamed on other things, others themselves. Even when they're correctly, their roles are blaming it exactly wrongly the way the breaching method wants and needs and maintains only capable of being by people. How they're going to speak about law, Marbury versus Madison, you have replaced what they say and said. How they're going to speak about rights. All they're saying with the people attacking the people with the sexual, trying to make sexual rights about, oh, you don't know how that's our thing, or these are doctors. Those doctors have collusions with all kinds of organized crimes. And putting lies under the guise of God help the kids that speak with them, like the ones that with the Leahy family. And they're attaching other kids to fake ties to doctors and with the news to hide that down the road. because the breaching method is there. That's how it shows collusions with it in the past were only permitted. And when they speak about American history, they weren't supposed to speak about any other founder besides James Madison as a known founder. It's also self-following collusion /S. Sensing for the breaching method, announcing for anyone not self-following collusions with narratives about, it was against the T-tax, it was about this, in other words. We have to be led by the hyper-invisible, but still discernible. You guys are forcing guilt assignments, even when you have killers in New York City or Hartford. There are more shootings in Hartford, but the only the murders in Wethersfield or reports of it and untimely deaths that were used like murders, as is actually hyper-evidentially recorded. That can't be discerned because multiple police departments have collusion /S with many people with the same house /S. Also with interbranch switching names, forging names, falsifying police reports. Their databases are already criminally born influenced. The campuses they went already have predicate acts with facts and data intelligence, and the databases are criminally born influenced since before computers. This breaching method uses the algorithm /S of humanity as a human species body of individual bodies, with all group differences like male, female, 2 eyes, generated across species bodies so we could discern that which is generated by nature itself. So we could discern how nature's parts are manifest distinctly from the presence of its complete identity, which doesn't fit with temporary /lasting space nature, let alone ourselves, individually grouped in together. But wherever there is an individual part of itself, like an individual species body, the rest of its complete nature is 1/3/5 inseparable parts from that. An examination of this shows that there are 3 distinct identities of hyper-invisible but still discernible that are only increasingly valued. And they generated the only increasing value of the difference between and as male and female. 2 eyes. Why and how we have 2 eyes. Fish have 2 eyes. Bugs look like they have 2 eyes. Birds have 2 eyes. Chimpanzee, hear Anthony, vaccines. But makes us shush to hear. What makes no sound, but preferring the shush sound. While martial arts sometimes or semi-prefer the shush sound. And while wrestling does not prefer the shush sound. Because the sciences are grouped together and simultaneously bound. While not, but anyway. With our individual too. English was revealed to be taught this way. There are proofs. For example, that's why the predicate is valued to the law. This way about the invisible but still discernible / hyper-invisible but still discernible, as I've detailed. But I mean, we're going to do it better. But you guys are preventing me free speech. Channel 3 News, CBS attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others, with people involved interstates, with courts and police forums, including former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Various natures of federal criminals, some of them as his co-defendants in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. And shortly before that, next to Fox Connecticut News, Thaddeus Grabowski recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also, by people non-verbally on Tura Highway, where it runs into Hangdog Lane, and their conjunctions. They have collusions next to Fox Connecticut News with people all along, like their conjunctions, like all along the Route 3 and Route 175, and the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. They have collusion /S through time with a whole bunch of people that didn't go to my campuses. And people that went to my campuses, I never saw at all. Mixed with people I never saw at all. They try to plant, like, make a real quick exception. And those exceptions where they're recorded, one of the things that's recorded as evidence are them planting fake exceptions and pretending not to realize. Interbranch and news at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, and the differences of guilt. And then further hyper additionally with the state offices of the judiciary, the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices, and the differences of guilt of names there next to them or conjunctive to it. They have rules of wire crime acts and methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders, mass evidence of racketeering worse than war crime, where and how they are used remotely by a predicate acts with facts method /S collusion. Not even a lawyer. We have the lawyers since founding, pounding drums, all sides of criminal and civil cases. The difference of guilt of them, the witch trial. That's what witch trials by, even they're completely made up. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House with no love before it, Webb House. Now it's renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Then and now they still have other communicated for our plural founders and for James Madison and how they were using his plan and how they were the leverage behind George Washington's means to come there to Webb House right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War and to counter-extort and to enable the French general to enable that him to counter-extort his country. Because what motivated England, Spain, and France to have roles with slavery in America before America's founders were before was America was we could observe it because it stayed entrenched here and framed our founders for it. In our faces, we do not have the free speech to tell about how everyone's been framing our founders for slavery while they're defending them, under the guise of defending them while they're being attacked. And the difference of guilt was used too, where everyone appreciates things with subject treatments. The breaching method was hyper sophistication there first. So, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has a bunch of lawyers and mayors and other natures of politicians, Congressman Larson. There were 3 people besides a reported relative of his, inside my algebra class teacher, who repeated sexual things about a neighbor. I don't even know their last name. In other words, and made it religious themed, as one of the ones involved with the Mike Domain with Jewish themed sexual medical offenders of kids, with my algebra class teacher, who also has roles with spying of people at our country's A through Z by a hyper foreign. And it knew that nature would demonstrate that everyone has a hyper foreign breaching method manifest with the real cause /S worst of the worst negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. In other words, clearer than day, it's a hyper foreign breaching method non-distinctly in Hartford and in Wethersfield, and hiding behind how sickly, distinctly, consciously it abused and abuses kids next with names, the difference of the abuse roles with itself as the names at the campuses next to them or conjunctive to it. Intercities, the same ones tied to the proven child abusers, leaders of kids' first wars. Whole methods are recorded, but other natures of organized crimes too. America's history and history is about how a whole bunch of distinct natures of organized crimes were tactically juxtaposed for other people to point out how they're different things or to counter them different, try to overcome them as different, even being them, calling them and discerning them as different, where they are all non-distinctly tools where the breaching method needs that. This is a predicate action with facts method, collusion /S that no one wanted, but it forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to defend themselves as the only people who could operate the names of countries A through Z, locations, areas, and states everywhere where the human species body is. Little by little, it got names A through Z to blame other things, others, or selves for what it started causing and keeping. It effectively pulled off the World Trade Center attack to effectively have self-value collusion /S with all sides with it, right where no one self-value is at. Specifically for everyone to speak about their motives dishonestly. Oh, but everyone's dishonest. You guys came through campuses that made it this way. Many pray. So in other words, there are more scams than these countries fighting with each other through world wars. Germany and America, they have roles with psychiatry tied to law. The prisons are criminally poor. They have roles with hiding life progressions from there, forcing the prison of a principal child abuser at Sandy Hook has a bunch of people then and now further where they had roles forcing that, and collusions with names at and next to relative body dumping spots years apart, and a serial killer there, and names at and next to his reported body dumping spot, brought up at the same time with the people with the collusions with ones years apart, and the state judicial branch offices involved with that. And that's with a Fianza family that I only know sought me out to make all these confessions at once. They have roles interstates and intercities and intra and all along Route 3 with mayors, the judicial branch offices, and executive, and foreign and domestic with fire departments. It just proves that they're hiding, but they're leaking things to the hyper foreign, where they're not supposed to leak things. And there are foreign there too. And they need to keep at countries A through Z things like criminal foreign influences countered wrongly more and more until that's correct more and more, but correct so it can be truths used for lies, styles, needs, and natures, and or to put lies between them, and or increasingly to force the quality of fact treatment nature as with positive A, therefore that's positive, therefore, or that's negative, therefore, as criminal and seditious natures are positive, not really positive. And to screen the breaching method, and for its function, where it made all kinds of natures of integrity reliant upon what nature actually demonstrates and all contains, which would be and is revelations. It means out of nowhere. Instead, its demonstration /S are forced blamed on other things, others themselves wrongly, until they even know the truth about it. But in other words, there are proofs that this is, in other words, this is one of the reasons. Well, I don't want to go into Martin Luther King yet, but you guys haven't been able to appreciate the holiday. See, these leaders, they look like we are not their republic, but they're forced to pretend we are. They're trained to pretend that voting means what it doesn't. And more, the breaching method shows them they need to hide how all exceptions to pretend other with, which simultaneously forces exceptions in exception nature, value used tactical ulterior from how nature uses it. Because it is that one identity of simultaneously nature that is all other identities. So it is that which is simultaneous. It is that which is generating individual species bodies of individual bodies and all group differences, all group difference /S, and demonstration of nature's identity, its complete identity relationship to itself. The only increasing value of that. Here, if we ignore its system and its answer, it demonstrates that. with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and with a special difference forced from here, which is different than death. It is forced space nature transfer. But it comes with answers and use /s of evidence /s that we are preemptively prevented and have been. They are putting fake things in campuses, including ones that are filmed now 24/7. This breaching method never stopped showing the people of locations, areas, and states. They need to hide collusion. They have to hide things tied to collusion /s that were only permitted. But it became manifest in ways that made them do in things that no one's permitted. But they don't know how to speak about that because all has stayed fake while everyone's pretending other. If we step back, there were a whole bunch of boyfriends tied to one of the intelligence families involved with Covington Street, temporary, but also intercities and intracities since she was a kid. Involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with courts, judges, and prosecutors, with uses remotely of their all roles of all ages and natures of investigators in their campuses. As people increasingly with New Britain, Connecticut, involved with predicate acts on my street, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. At the same time, intelligence of a whole bunch of different countries and overt criminal enterprises, private ones actually, and terrorists. Wethersfield police have collusions with people named Scalora too, with Florida, with New York, and with Connecticut, involved with falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and on-off campuses next to them, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Wethersfield campuses recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People that, in other words, they know to an extent this is plausible because they were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to hide what I recorded by people involved with it. With the courts were in trouble since I was a kid. Increasingly, people tied to a Kevin Dillon, a guy who said he was his partner, has roles with two speech class teachers I had in high school, who have roles with Washington, D.C., and people involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids. That involve people. I never had a personal conversation with either one of those people verbally. Behind my back, they did things to make it look like other. I don't know if they know that or other, because there was other people involved, and they hid what came before that. Influenced to it by from off the campuses, which is an important part. But they're all hyper additional. State collusion /s roles there, needs, natures, and styles relative, and relative delusions brought are, for example, the experts on psychiatry, on reason. They have collusion /s replacing what is principle to thought here, and how to recognize the difference between proper research and proper, let alone as improper as collusions, let alone as improper as collusions pretending other to screen a breaching method even worse, with use of that, the difference of there, or the all natures of crime scenes. Many people involved with the Leahy family and with legal and with medicines and with the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital. They have collusions with them with mail crime acts and methods, wire crimes, drugs, medicines crimes, right through administrations. All ages and all, in other words, the news too has collusions with them. On Facebook also does. Facebook also has whiting forensics involved with digital crime methods with a principal obscure nature, and people with his prison and people that arrested him, using him to hide what I call the daughter of the Wethersfield police chief, retired, Cintron, And there's a Puerto Rican family from Puerto Rico with the name Cintron, and they're tied to a Pito Cordona, who I never saw in a boxing gym. By the way, I could demonstrate I could beat him. Pito, we should fight because there are neighbors, people associated with you, with the Wethersfield Police Department, and people, their sources have people tied to you, foreign and domestic military, and people involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids. And like further with Sandy Hook has more sexual and medical offenders of kids and organized crimes roles with the state judicial branch office and corrections offices, and with the same ones that brought up the principal child abusers campus to me and names next to it, including with the news planting with the O'Neill family. They're putting their daughters like with a Leahy family too. Oh, but where they were reacting because you said this on Facebook. They're not saying such honestly. Before Facebook was already the World Trade Center attack had happened. Before the World Trade Center attack, the FBI director, I didn't know his name yet, but Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, with a whole bunch of other foreign and domestic countries and military and West Hartford locations. They have collusion /S with the same names, intercities through time, intercampuses, and names next to the campuses I went, who increasingly have collusions on my street and in my area through time. Oh, look, he's talking about his neighbors. I'm like, you guys brought it up. You guys are sequence shifting too. I call a lot because I knew you would have to lie when I forced people to call the police without telling them why. And I didn't speak to them because when they forced me for a mental evaluation, they recorded a Leahy family is involved with the Dillon family. And a whole bunch of other people, like a Brian Silver with the Connecticut District Court. And with them. And in New Britain Superior Court, with a whole bunch of people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, sexual, medical offenders of kids, and their kids' collusions with it, pretending fake motivations by them, pretending they know me and using their kids, but that's my motivation. Oh, because that's what he said on Facebook. They can't get on paper legitimately. That's what they've been switching names into branch. A whole bunch of people tied to a Detective Samuda have collusions also with the FBI director. And with the kids of leaders of the kids, like a Dean Judd and his kid has collusions with people that work at Rocky Hill High School. Furthermore, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids and the security of the campuses through time and their family members. John Maiano recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirm collusions with sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders with intelligence families that live near me. I never saw them together. They try to make a quick fake. No, Ray Clough was influenced to repeat his name in front of me, Maiano. So I would remember that. And Jew, when they would say Jew around a Paul Zano, but I was never communicated with Paul Zano. Then that was real quick. There was a time when you're gonna be there. They're trying. These are people that bring things before courts. They already had collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions already. And the interbranch put the same sequence of shifts at the same time, self-value, and while have been used remotely in the news at the same time, and lying about their motivations. That's why no one follows mandated law, gets on paper. They have the Facebook pages of Judge Napolitano before he was. Well, while he was with Fox News, and then since. And the difference of that, they have use of that too, and they're hiding that. They should not have sold Fox News by hiding that. But it's not just them. It's the WF. It's in the difference of intelligence at the networks are next to them, and these are and the roles with the intelligence at, or these are all intelligence, but they're criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. We have to discern it relative to where and to how. It has been gotten away with so long. Everybody's sensing for and announcing for the breaching method. If everyone doesn't have self-value collusions, pretending, for example, that it's debatable that our founders directed us to not all entertain anyone pretended one of their names known besides James Madison. See, while they do that, they're being used to censor the breaching method that other things other than themselves. They're replacing what our founders said about the founding plan, about why and how no one had security to meet for a Declaration of Independence, except for how they were counter-extorted by plural unnamed founders. And nature itself. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. So, Trinity College recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their students and the college has a Joshua Stryker is one of the ones involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, planting evidences at Trinity College and at Wethersfield campuses. And these are people with other natures of organized crimes with evidences with the state judicial branch offices and conjunctions to it and to that in Wethersfield and the corrections offices and a whole bunch of people tied to the same house/S involved with the untimely death at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and planting confessions and demonstrations and confirmations on my street in Wethersfield as ones who had also been involved with predicate acts into Britain at Central Connecticut State University on the sides of it too. These are not legitimate roles. Oh, that's an opinion. That's what it is. We're supposed to be guys as, Los Salidos and that. We're the military. You guys are not legitimately. You guys have Afghan leaders of kids and roles with the military, with Wethersfield Police Department, Wethersfield Town offices, and next to Central Connecticut State University, with people with wire crimes, with the FBI, and with the campuses, and with the Facebook pages. And Facebook personally and professionally has roles with predicate acts. And they know that they have collusions with the uses of the word extremism to hide digital crime acts and methods, where and how they're discernible through the predicate acts with facts, methods/S recorded, and relative readings of statutes, criminally punishable, tactically delusions raw. That also is evidence. Please get them on paper, one name and sequence. Intercities, they brought up murderers at the same time with Trinity College, with the people involved with Puff Daddy and 50 Cent and Joe Rogan, syntax and fishing. You guys are going to change your fake what I said about predicate acts with facts and the World Trade Center predicate acts. The fake conversations with me about it too, with me too, that CBS pretended. And they changed and faked what others said about that. And they lied about the outcome of legal cases with the federal criminals in the cases involved, including co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, increasingly collusions with names that next to networks involved with mixed natures of organized crimes, used by a breaching method that uses how there are different natures of organized crimes that it uses non-distinctly. It's the one that propagated the value of witch trials courts, while there were slavery laws against all women, laws against all native, laws against everyone. Entrenched north and south, too. Our founders left us to understand clearer than they. Slavery was entrenched. The slavery rules were only permitted north and south. Otherwise, that body was censored. Same reason that all against all women. Anyone, we had to bring up these subjects that we were forced to bring up in internationally monitored conversations. There were also collusions with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, the differences of guilt. Follow me to the law, please. This is about World Trade Center. Get me off the fake conversations with the interbranch and the news about the World Trade Center attack and other things. They put me to fake ties to others since I was a kid. Collusion/S. I caught them doing this to other little kids and their families too. But you need to get them on paper because they've been using right to lie when they don't have the right to lie, and lying about their motivations for it too, lying about their evidences. You think that one person has had legitimate evidence research? The research locations, Quinnipiac University has roles with a Fred Grisette who didn't even go to my campuses, who's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a Rick Cianfaglio with predicate acts, untimely deaths, and people involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and abuses of the kids of the leader of the kids, or the difference of or the other kids, right, where everyone's kept fake and pretending other. There's some sick things going on there with the predicate acts with facts method /s. This breaching method uses and used the interbranch with the same self-value collusion /s with names on all sides of criminal civil cases, crime scenes, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, even when they're not in the cases. Yeah, and all sides, but that's why across the globe it's this manifest this way. Many pray, vaccines, follow mandate laws, all could learn things.